everybody. It's your old pal Jesse back with another edition of Gen X Thinks, and this is another user-inspired edition. We have Ulfer Skarsgård to thank for this one. It was his suggestion, it was his idea for this video, and I thought it was a pretty good one. And I've seen several Gen Xers leave comments about this subject in our comment section. It's not something that's rarely thought about or rarely commented on. It's been commented on quite a few times, but Ulford is the first one to suggest that I make a video of it. So I'm going to talk about Gen X working as kids and kind of compare that to kids nowadays and a little bit in the past too. To kick it off, as I said, I've had quite a few people comment to me on our videos here about how they worked as children. I mean, young children, 8, 9, 10 years old, running paper routes, mowing lawns, and working little jobs all at the same time sometimes while going to school and finding time to play as children. They didn't hardly make any money back then, but it was better than nothing, more than nothing. They earned themselves money to spend on candy and soda or whatever, or to save to buy something that they really wanted. That wasn't an uncommon thing among Gen Xers. I myself, my father was a horse trainer, and starting in my earliest memory was the second grade, and he had me breaking and training ponies at that age. For those of you who don't know, and you think, oh, what a wonderful, that'd be great, ride horses. Not not riding horses, breaking and training horses. There's a real difference there. If you have a horse with bad habits like biting or kicking or bucking, that's not fun for somebody in the second grade, a 9-year-old or whatever, however old I was back then. That's not something I looked forward to. And I was hurt a couple of times, bucked off and other things. And it really soured me on it. It was real work that I didn't enjoy. And as soon as I got old enough, I got myself away from that stuff. I joined the army and went off. But I was doing that from the second grade, out in a corral fighting with a pony when I was really young. My dad didn't put me with a full-grown ornery horse, but a pony could still do some real damage to an 8-year-old, But that's work out there wrestling, on the end of a rope with a 400-pound pony. And my first job I was in my early teens, 13 or 14 probably, and I worked at a small animal auction. And I was the only kid there. Everybody else was adults, but we had to run pigs and goats and small animals like that through the auction, to be sold. And that's the first time I had ever really been around those things. My dad was a horse trainer, but he wasn't like a farmer or anything. He didn't like pigs and goats and stuff, so we never really kept that stuff around, those kind of animals. But that's the first time I realized how strong pigs are. I remember some little pig, it was just a little guy like this, and he come running down the alley at me, and he wasn't supposed to be going into the sales arena yet. So I figured I would just pin him up against the rail, the side of the fence. I just pin him up against the fence with my leg and pick him up and take him back to his pen. No, he blew right past me, spun me around. Those little things are strong, but I digress. So we worked. A lot of us worked hard as kids. And maybe that's kind of why we bucked and rebelled against that as teenagers. Some of us continued that through as teenagers and just worked our entire lives. Some of us bucked and rebelled against that. But I remember adults calling us lazy and stuff. Now we're the hardest working generation out there. I mean, hands down, there's no question about that. Maybe not the hours or whatever, but we're on time. We aren't completely opposed to physical labor. I do physical labor every day, and it's just my lot in life. So you got to do what you got to do, and I think that's our mentality. You got to do what you got to do. You got to survive. We learned that early on. One commenter told me that they would go out and work crazy hours and bring home the money, and their parents would just take the money, like as if they were adults, maybe, or maybe they were teenagers. I don't know, 13, 14, 15, whatever. but taking the money as if they're 20, and owe rent or something. That tells you something about our parents' mentality. A lot of us were, not all of us. I certainly was looked at in that regard as a tool. My time and my physical efforts weren't my own, according to my parents. They own that. And I have a hunch that there were a lot more of you out there with parents who viewed your your efforts in the same way. So I was just expected to go out there and work. And the crazy thing, my dad never had a job. He just wanted to mess with horses his whole life. Never had a job the entire time growing up. He never had a job, but he expected me to work my ass off. So, and my brothers and sisters, but me especially because I was the oldest. But we've had a lot of Gen Xers as kids who had these jobs and worked as children, even if they got away from it and bucked against it in as teenagers. They worked hard as children, and then after you grow out of your teenage rebellious years, then you go back to working hard. Even the ones who bucked a little bit, our entire lives have been defined by work. That's our value to society. That was our value to our parents, our physical labors, and what we could provide. Even as young as like 8 years old, we learned that stuff early. And I think that's the difference between us and the later generations, the younger generation. They didn't have to go through that. And nowadays, you go down the street, and maybe not everywhere, but locally here in Central Florida, you go down the street and you will never see like a 10-year-old or anything like that, even young teenager, mowing a lawn ever. Everybody hires lawn services and stuff now. There aren't any teenagers out there trying to make a couple bucks and pushing a lawnmower around. And they have awesome lawnmowers now, electric ones, so you don't even have to mess with gasoline and oil and all this stuff. You know what I mean? Really good electric ones. It's so much easier now, but they're not doing it. I don't know where do teenagers get money? I guess it's just handed to them by their parents or whatever, maybe. I don't know. But that's a pretty glaring difference between us and the younger generation. They don't work. Now, at a job, I was out here recently and I saw some younger kids, probably late teens, early 20s, and they were doing landscaping type of work, planting trees, but they were doing it for a company. They weren't kids, they were grown adults, but they were young kids to me, early 20s. But they were out there in the Florida sun right next to me getting it done. Yeah. They weren't standing around. I didn't see a phone once. They weren't standing around on their phones, Facebooking or whatever, Instagram, whatever the kids do nowadays. TikTok, maybe. I didn't see a phone once. They got it done all day. So some of them out there are workers. I'm not gonna sit here and blanket all of the younger generation as lazy like they did us when we were kids. Some of them are workers. Some of them get it done. They're out there getting it done. I've seen it with my own eyes. But as kids, I don't know if they're sheltered from that by their parents. Their parents don't want them. It is partially that, because I had a comment. I just remembered it. Someone told me in the comment section that they knew a 15-year-old who wasn't allowed to do dishes because knives were sharp. I don't know about y'all, but back in my time, dishes was a chore you were expected to do. If you didn't do it, that was your ass. If you tried to get out of it, that was backsassing and probably got you a smack in the face. You just did the dishes and when it was your turn, and that was it. Now we actually have kids that aren't almost adults, 15-year-old, not allowed to do dishes because knives are sharp. Not allowed to. He can't even volunteer to do dishes. Hey, mom, I'll do. No, knives are sharp, honey. So, and that takes me down the rabbit hole of there are a lot of sharp things in the world. Pencils, pens, needles, just to name three. What all isn't this kid allowed to do at 15 years old? That kind of stuff blows my mind. So part of it is the parents. If he's not allowed to do dishes, then he's certainly not allowed to go out and mess with a lawnmower that has spinning sharp blades on it. At 15, the stuff we were doing at 9 and 10. We were doing it at 9 and 10. He's not allowed to do at 15. It's got something to do with the parents, at least some of the parents. That's a little overboard in my opinion, but to each their own. But I think it's also a mixture of just the kids in this society now with the internet and Call of Duty and all these things, when you have so many things vying for your time online, and probably a lot of your best friends are online, and y'all are, you can't wait to get back home after school so you can get on whatever game and talk to your friends, your real friends. Your real friends are online now, not in school. There's something to do with that too. I think that's where our comfort area was outside. That's where I was the most comfortable. I didn't like being inside around my parents. Now I remember when being sent to your room was a punishment. Now it's the exact opposite. They make you come out of your room because in your room is where your TV and your game system and all that stuff is. So they'll make you come out of your room if I doubt they ever get punished, but I'm just saying that's where kids want to be now, is in their room. That was punishment for me. Send me to my empty ass room, just stare at the walls for 3 hours. I wanted to be outside playing, running around, buck wild, jumping stuff and causing havoc. So that is a big cultural shift where kids used to want to be outside. Now they want to be in their room. So the kids don't want to mow lawns. They want to be online. I've seen the pictures and read articles and stuff and read stories and watched movies about, back in the day, they used to send kids to work in factories, in coal mines and stuff. Little kids, until the government finally had to pass laws against that stuff. That kind of mentality from the older generations, our parents and grandparents, still kind of clung on though, where a child's time and energy and work was theirs to use. It was just an item, another item to ease their life or whatever, make their life a little bit easier. Which I don't think, honestly, I don't think it was a bad thing for me growing up. I mean, it was at the time. I was mad as a little kid. I got to go do this. I got to go mess with this horse or whatever, this pony. But now looking back, I've learned some valuable lessons. I learned what real work is. So if I get a cushy job in the air conditioning or something, at least I'm not out in a corral in the middle of the summer getting drug around the dirt by a horse. I can always say that, even if the job I'm doing sucks. It doesn't suck that bad. And I think we have that too. A lot of us grew up with that mentality because we've actually done hard work, done grown up work at the age of 9 and 10. So any of that work is hard. Pushing a lawnmower at the age of 9 or 10, it's not as easy as it is when you're 30, probably 10 times harder. But we did it. And I honestly think that we're better off for it. Mentally, emotionally, human beings need a certain amount of toughness, don't we? Isn't that a valuable trait, to be mentally and emotionally resilient and tough, to not let things affect you to your core? Every little thing that you find offensive or that bothers you a little bit, like an arrow right into your heart. I can't believe he said that. He would actually say that to me online. I need to go talk to my therapist. How many therapy hours now are billed because some idiot typed something online nowadays? That's got to be a racket. I'm telling you, I don't know. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I'll leave you there with that food for thought. Before I go, I'd like to invite you to support the channel by buying me a cup of coffee. I'll leave the link in the description, and thanks in advance. I really appreciate it. I'll say thank you. I appreciate you watching the video. Please like, subscribe, and comment down below if you have any thoughts on today's subjects and anything I've said. Unless it's about my appearance, then just keep it to yourself. I forgot my filter. No, I'm just kidding. Fire away. I don't care. Well, have fun. Thank you for your support and your time, and stay frosty, Gen X. I'll see you on the next one.